Our very own Brendan Favola, he was special guest on Bob Murphy's show, Bob. Fev really opened up on the show.
I remember Vossi came in, I was at the New Farm Medical Clinic, and he sacked me in there. And I sat there, and I think I even cried. I think I was born. I said, I'll play for nothing. And he said, no. And that was it. It was just done. And then when he left, I was like, that's it. I'm done. That's my footy. Done and dusted. No trade, no nothing to fall back on. Lost all the money on the punt, so I was cooked. But fast forward 8 years, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, I've got a few questions. That's awful. That's so awful that happened. That's really awful.
It's a tough time.
Yeah. And they did that like that. That's just awful.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be able to do that this day and age.
No, they wouldn't.
No. But
you wouldn't,
back then
thankfully.
it was,
but that's awful that you were treated like that.
Yeah, well, mental health back, I think it was in the start of 2011 was looked upon in a way where it was sort of weak.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of media outside the mental clinic, and they were trying to take photos and over the balcony and stuff.
So this is a lockdown facility, isn't it?
This is a lockdown facility. Yeah,
like
you're in lockdown,
right?
And some very sick people in there, and I was one of them. And to be sacked inside there was probably not the right decision.
Felt so alone.
Yeah, I did. But I was heavily medicated because you're on there, so I didn't quite grasp what was going on.
But you were enough to be upset.
Yeah,
and
I was
know
really
that
upset,
your
and I was on a pretty big contract at Brisbane because I went over there I signed a 3-year deal, and then to be told that that's it, and especially when I'd lost all my money on the punt, and Alex had gone back to Melbourne, we'd broken up.
Right.
I just thought it was it. It was done. My life's over.
So can I ask, when your career's over, like, does that mean that there was no other teams that would take you, or you weren't allowed to go to another team?
Yeah, I was damaged goods.
You were damaged goods,
so
right? So no one wanted to touch you.
So no one wanted to take me, and I'd put on a lot of weight in the facility because of the medication. I spoke about that on the show. And I didn't have a trade, like I didn't have an education.
Right.
All I did was footy because I got drafted at 17, so I was still in year 11. So straight into football, and then at 29, I'm thinking, oh, my life's over.
Yeah, but at the end you said, fast forward 8 years, and it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, it was, and a lot of people go, oh, I can't believe Brisbane and Vossi did that when I was in a mental clinic, but. Looking back on it now, it literally was the best thing that ever happened to me. He coming in saying your footy career is over because all I knew was football.
Right.
I lived it. I loved it. I slept in my footy gear when I was a kid, and that's all I did from the age of 4.
Okay.
And to realise that was over, I needed to man up and start doing stuff and provide for my kids and my wife. And she did provide for me for a long time because I didn't have a job.
Right.
So I got out for 4 years until I got this job. I didn't work. So she was an amazing support, Alex, and Michael Voss did the best thing that ever happened to me, and I got my life in order. And everyone said, "Oh, your life's over. Footy's a be all and end all," but it's not. Footy's not the be all and end all. I'm 29. I've still got a lot of life to live, and I was lucky enough. I went on that show with Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, and people got to see the real me. And then I got this wonderful job, which I'm very grateful for. And it was a tough time, tough period. It's tough to talk about.
I did not know much about you, Fev, at all. I take you as I see you.
Okay,
but the more I find
people live under a rock.
Yeah, how was that possible?
I had no idea of all of this kind of history. It's just heartbreaking, and you just think, God, this must happen to so many people.
But sometimes, and I get a lot of messages from people about how you get your life back on track, but sometimes you do got to hit rock bottom, and I did hit rock bottom. I was cooked to get back up because sometimes you take things for granted, and I did. And I took footy for granted, I took money for granted, and I pretty much wasted everything. But then I realised that that's not the right path, but I had to learn that before I got to there. I think it's called maturity.
Well done. 18 past 7 on the Fox.